Today I have an amazing drill for you to practice sticking to your opponents. But before that, we must have a clear understanding of the 45. If you're new to my channel, make sure to check out the description for a long and concise list of PvP videos to help you get to this level. In short, the 45 is all about placing the target's enemy craft in a position that allows you to line them up 45 degrees relative to your ship. This allows you to tricord, allowing you to use the most amount of power to get closer to the target. One of the most common mistakes I see players do is when they merge. They push forward and they keep holding the forward as they turn around. This actually increases the distance between the pilots. Instead, what you want to do is, as you're approaching and going for the merge, try to stop your speed with reverse, then going into the 45. The 45 in this case, because Magix will be on my top left, will require me to up strafe and left strafe. This will put me right in line with Magix and then allow me to get closer in a faster pace. In this demonstration, we're not going to be focusing too much about distance or speed, but rather the angles that need to be held to maintain this 45. For example, here I have Magix on my top left, allowing me to push in a 45 and get closer to him. The 45 is something that always adjusts depending on your relative positioning, and as explained in other videos, the pip can help you understand this direction. But in general, you're always pushing towards the craft. So here I need to go up to the right. Here I just have to go up. But if I want a 45, I need to angle my roll so that he is in the 45 degree angle. Again, for example, if I pass him and he is under me into the left, I can 45 just by going down the left. You have less power than using your up strafes, but it's a viable option, and depending on relative speed, it can be very useful to cause evasions and maneuvers that could outplay the player. Hopefully that helps you understand the 45. If not, make sure to check the link to the Discord below where we have many helpful pilots. Now let's jump into my favorite drill, the evolving turret. So the evolving turret drill is a drill in where we move from one side of the ship to the other side of the ship. We're pushing from nose to rear. This can be from wingtip to wingtip, from bottom to top. How you move and what you move is up to you, but the main goal is to get from one side to the other side. As you do these maneuvers, you want to stick close to the ship. So when I push from one side of the other ship, I don't want to veer away from the ship, but rather stay relatively close to the ship. For example, if I do this again without applying the correct amount of forward strafe required here, I would drift away from Magix, which is something I'm trying to avoid. The main goal I want you to practice is when you adjust from one side to the other side is stop your ship. It's okay if whoever you're practicing this with gets turret on you, but I want you to understand how to stop your ship and stay close to the ship. So as you can see here, I'm kind of drifting and getting a little farther out. What I want to do is eventually get really close so that when he tries to turn, it takes him much longer to get his vision around. But this requires being able to nullify your ship's movement in any direction so that you're not drifting away from the opponent. The most common mistakes that I see people perform while doing this is accidentally adding too much input or holding an input in the same direction at all times. For example, if I were to move around Magix here, I don't want to keep holding the right strafe, as it would just put me in an orbit pattern around Magix the whole time. I want to eventually stop a point where I neutralize or stop my ship from moving and stick right in front of Magix. From here on, I'm going to be the turret. I'm going to hold my space brake so I don't accidentally drift into him or away from him and let all the maneuvering go down to him. My goal is to aim my turret back at Magix, and then by the time I get my nose to him, he should be moving in a different direction. The opponent should be stopped by about the halfway point here, and then once the turret starts to ring around, Magix should now go ahead and push to the other side. If done correctly and timed properly, the player playing the turret should never be able to get an aim on the opponent trying to maneuver around the ship. We're going to show the first example of how this would go down, and again his goal is to keep my nose away from him. And as you can see, he stops his ship and then he moves to a different location as I get closer. Once you get comfortable with doing this and you're able to stop and maneuver in these positions, then you can start kicking it up with variations on that. For example, Magix will now show you a position where you just orbit around and you're never able to acquire a target. As long as he keeps shifting around like this, I'll never be able to obtain angles, but there are moments where he will have to kind of change direction. The turret can try to mess up the pilot by swinging in different angles, rolling in different directions, but without using any strafe inputs whatsoever, so that you're always in the same position. Now that we've gotten stage 2 out of the way, let's show stage 3. Stage 3 will require me, the turret, turning on SCM speed and limiting it to about 30 to 40 ms. The lower, the easier it's going to be for the pilot who is trying to evade the turret. Magix will be the active player and he will have unlimited speed at his disposal. My goal is to try to get my nose on him with my limited speed while he practices knife fighting and evading around me without allowing me to get nose on. While I can use certain back strafes and angles and strafe patterns to get him back on the nose, because I have a limited top speed, it forces me to use different maneuvers and trying to cut into his angle with the limited speed to get a nose acquisition once again. This is going to vary a lot depending on player skill, and it's something you can experiment with different speeds. Basically, the faster the turret is allowed to go, the harder it's going to be for the other pilot. So a quick little tip, if you want to practice how to do these maneuvers and you don't have someone to practice with, you can use one of these landing platforms in free flight. What you're looking for is you're going to mark one side as the front end of a ship and you're going to mark the other side as the rear of the ship. And what you're going to work on is getting from one side of the ship to the other side of the ship, like so. Again, the premise is the same. You want to do this as close to the station as you possibly can. And you can start with just strafing above the ship, but eventually you want to mix it up. Maybe you want to strike coming around the right side of the ship, or maybe you want to come around the left side of the ship, and maybe even under the ship. But the point is to mix it in different angles so that you can get a good understanding of what you're doing at all times. And again, the goal is get to the other side and stop your ship without the use of space brake. Once you can do all the sides, you can start mixing it up with different angles. For example, you can come to the right, then stop, go left, and come around. This is where you get a little bit more creative and you can mix different things like going right and back to left and coming around the sides this time.
The weak ones just used to keel over and die.
If you're new to decoupled, or in general just new to the game, some of these movements are going to be hard, so I emphasize, do not do this at full speed, as a lot of you will struggle a lot. You want to do this slowly. For example, here I'm going to push a little forward, move my nose, get an idea of where I'm going, and then maybe line up slowly, take my time. As you get better, you'll be able to increase your speed. You might have moments where you drift apart and you lose control of your ship. Don't be afraid to hit your space brake and try restarting over again. Get close to the station and try it again. This may take a couple attempts, but you'll get it. That's going to be it for this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.